Welcome to From an Educator. Today's episode, number 68, we're talking about hormesis, otherwise known as intermittent stress that has a desirable outcome. Let's get right to it. Welcome back to From an Educator. I'm Mr. James, an educator, and yes, Mr. Ritchie is busy this week, so I've gone back to this format. I've also gone back to using some slides because this is a subject I want to talk about. He mentioned it last week because I mentioned it, and I thought it'd just be something great to talk about, especially since we can apply this to our life and how we think about how we live and to live more effectively and to live longer, right? The major goal here. I guess my lifelong life overarching goal, whatever. So hormesis is what I'm titling this episode. It is show number 68. Wow, it is summer. And yeah, let's get right to some events happening in my life. So if you're new to the show, I like to do a podcast with another person. It's called We Are the Educators. And when that other person cannot do the podcast, it becomes From an Educator. I talk about my life as an educator, as well as other things that are basically on my mind. And I have this overarching goal to be healthy and live as long as I possibly can, if not forever, and talk about science behind that and science behind everything, because it's really interesting to me. So updates in my current Maine life. Yes, I'm in Maine. There's one more week of summer school. So I guess it's kind of like I'm still in school. It's kind of like I've been in school for the past 4 weeks. And with 1 week left, it's kind of like a little sad. And at the same time, okay, after this, I guess my summer vacation really begins, but then in 3 weeks later, school begins. So, and honestly, just getting ready for the school year to begin, it's not going to be 3 weeks off. I'm going to be in my room. I've already seen my room, been in my room a number of times, and it's been cleaned, and I have to reorganize everything. And that's one of my little bullet points in this slide that I have in front of me. I'm looking at slides for those listening in only. And yeah, I want to clean my room up. I want to organize it. I've already drawn up plans. I just need to move things. And here's the thing about drawing plans and then actually being there to try things out. Biggest thing is this. You can draw things up and you go, oh, great, I'm going to put this many chairs here and that. But then when you finally get into the room, you might have forgotten how big a chair actually is. And so my room looks large when I'm in it and everything's moved to the corner. But when I start putting things in place, I'm like, wow, actually, it's kind of small. And when you add bodies, 20, 22 students, that is going to be a packed area. So I want to make sure there's rooms for exits, entries, all of that. And I don't want to be moving things around all the time. Last year I had to move around seats, and it was chairs and mats, and I went back and forth. So I had to have classes wait out into the hallway while I changed things around. We had extra time then, but people always showed up early. I don't have that time anymore. And I actually haven't looked at the schedule for this coming year, but I know it's going to be much different and it's going to be stressful. But I'm going to go with the flow. I'm going to make sure I'm ready for that stress. And I'm going to talk about that stress today a little bit, because I guess it's a good thing. So I'm also halfway, maybe more than halfway through a college class that has to do with English language learners. It's actually second language acquisition. It's really interesting. I love the science behind it. I could see myself doing a job like this. I just can't give up my post and what I'm currently doing. So I'm going to incorporate what I can from this class into what I'm doing with that. It's kind of the best way to do things, right? Isn't that what you are as a teacher? Oh, here's a cat, by the way, that's joining me on this. Got to add some things in. I'm also want to mention this because it's really important. I mentioned on this podcast many times my lack of better technology, updated technology. Well, I've got something a little more updated. I've got a miniature computer. It's tiny. It's almost silent, and it's running this entire thing right now. I've set everything up on it, and hopefully this new software I'm using to edit this goes off without a hitch. I already edited one show. It seems like I kind of know how to do it, but yeah, the other computer couldn't even run the program. It wouldn't even run it. So this is going to be a big change. I've got more RAM. I've got a faster processor, and yeah, things seem to be going all right. So I'm just hoping that warranty lasts on this thing. And this last little bullet point is something I've been thinking about recently. It's looking for meaning. So I have been busy with a lot of different things I have in my schedule, bands I have to practice with, gigs, jobs I've got, and what it's going to become in the fall, all these things I'm trying to put together, these pieces. And it's a lot of work, and you have to ask yourself, is it worth it? What am I getting out of this? What meaning do I have? Yes, I'm helping a lot of people. Yes, I'm teaching. I'm there. I'm present. I'm giving of myself. But at the same time, there seems to be something missing, and I'm just looking for it. I just don't seem to be, I'm not relaxing this summer. I'm not having fun. The last episode, if you kept up with this podcast, Mr. Ritchie was hearing me lament about how bad things were going. I had a bit of a cold, and yeah, I had that gig that I mentioned, and it was kind of like suffering through it at the same time. I think a lot of things went well with it. I made some money, even money now when I think about it, and that is not really a big goal of mine, but it kind of also is, because I like to trade my services for money, and I've been doing that for a while. So it's just something that I'm used to. But money doesn't seem to hold that, I don't know, meaning that I need. So I'm looking for something beyond that. And I guess I'm trying to add something new to my schedule, which is something what I like to do. It's adding some more stress, I guess, to my schedule, because gigs and summer school and whatever this summer presents, it's not enough for me right now. So I'm looking for some meaning. But that's my updates. And hopefully your summer is going much better, much smoother. And if not, hey, there's going to be a silver lining there somewhere. Find it. So one of the first subjects I want to talk about today is something called a paradigm shift. So paradigm shift was where something, your expectations, everything changed, your outlook just completely changing. And I talked about this just briefly about trying to find meaning. And I asked these questions of myself these past few weeks. First of all, is everything working for me? So because this podcast right now currently has just me on it, it's more of like a diary somewhat. So forgive me, everybody who is new to this and wondering, why am I listening to this person? I'm a very interesting person. I've been a musician for many, many years, professional. I've got multiple degrees, psychology, business, theater, music. It's all there. I have a lot of things to talk about. I've been teaching music for over 16 years. I've been teacher in multiple different areas for I guess total 20 something years. And I teach dance as well. And I'm a performer. I do things all around the state. At the same time, even though I try to book as many things as I possibly can, because of the pandemic, I haven't been able to book that many things, and I haven't been able to be part of these projects. And currently I find myself, as projects are starting to roll in, not as receptive to the process of doing them. So I'm not getting a lot out of them. I'm still doing them. I'm still putting the game face on. I'm just not getting everything I can out of them. So not everything is working for me. I still wake up early in the morning. I'm still exercising. I'm pushing myself through there. I need to push myself a little bit more. I need to change things up because it's getting a little stale right now for me. And I think that's one big thing. Like I mentioned before, I like to have a win in the morning. I like to wake up in the morning, and exercise makes me feel good. And of course, after I exercise, I can be hungry and I can have something that is delicious, that fuels me, and it just kind of gets my body going. Like I want to digest better. I my body's just primed to go. I'm not going to be yawning when I go to school or whatever I go to work. And it's just one of those things that gives me a win. I succeed by doing that. And I'm just not getting that feeling the past few weeks. And I need to find a new way to get that. So I'm going to have to start integrating something new in that. And that's this other on the slide I'm looking at right now. It says, is everything working for me? Of course, no. What do I need to change? Well, that might be one thing. I'm still looking at things with my diet, things that I can eat that'll give me more energy. I think I might change some things I'm currently doing, but it might be seasonal, like what I eat for breakfast and my spacing of snacks and meals and how I'm going to do that, especially now looking at what might be the new schedule for the fall, which is going to be much different than last year, much different, and much different than the previous year. In fact, this is a completely different thing altogether. So I'm glad I'm not reusing anything from previous years as far as my planners and stuff. I have to buy a completely different one, and this is a completely different I haven't used before at all. So, but I also think I need to change priorities. And I have been looking at things I do. This podcast right now, it feels like a good mainstay. It's something I want to continue doing. I definitely needed to get a new system so I could record this and render it faster, because I didn't want to wait to record something and wait for the same amount of time it took to record it for it to render down. And then that doesn't even mean uploading it to YouTube and stuff, or the editing. I mean, that takes a long time. So I'm hoping to get a system that works efficiently and nothing's crashing and everything's working. I'm definitely going to be backing everything up, but I want that process to go smoothly, and it hasn't been. And I'm hoping this can make a little change in that area. Also, I'd just like to start including some other things that I feel like I'm missing in my life, and that might be, a bit more of a social life, or maybe I need to have some more loftier goals for my practice regimen with music. Maybe I need to, join an orchestra again. I did that before for many years. I, play with another ensemble that has nothing to do with my bands that I make money in, that are basically about finding gigs and rehearsing when we have gigs. So basically a business model. But I'm looking for something that's going to kind of change my mind. I've been reading a few books that have kind of changed my mind about things. And I've just, I've been looking around for something to initiate a change. So I've kind of had to shift on what is important to me. And I guess I'm getting better all the time. We all are. It's just one of those things where, it gives you that uneasy feeling that you're not doing something right, or you're missing out on something. And I just don't like that feeling. And I don't want to feel like I'm doing that with my job. But the past few jobs I have had haven't gone beyond 3 or 4 years. So I'm getting that mark with this job, and I want to make sure I give it on my all. That shouldn't be a problem. I just want to make sure my head's all in the game and that I really want to be there. I mean, that's the biggest thing. It doesn't matter if you have the greatest job in the world. If you don't want to be there and you're not having fun, it's killing you every single day. And that's the same thing with being in a relationship with someone. If you just cannot be next to that person. And I've been in that situation many, many times. And you just, it's nothing against the person. It's just something is just wrong and off, and you cannot turn that off. You just can't find the meaning, something that's meaningful to you. And you just have to make a change. And I'm used to changing. So what am I changing and how do I know? Well, I will be changing some of my schedule for what I do. I think I'm going to start adding in something that's going to be one of my morning routines where I read more, or I take some time so that I do something. Maybe it might even be something I have to do on the computer. Maybe it's checking out the news, or, I want to be more like reading or writing something. It could be starting a blog. I mean, it's something I want to do consistently, just like my exercise routine. And I want to be able to measure it so I can see progress. So that might be one thing I start to do. There are a lot of things I'm looking into right now. So I'm guessing I'm going to find out what it might be, and something's going to pop out to me and say, oh, I think I'll try that. And yes, I do have some time right now in the summer to kind of research this before it becomes crunch time, and I have to really make sure it fits into my schedule for the fall. But interestingly enough, I am teaching summer school now, and it begins an hour and a half earlier. Well, literally, I'm there an hour and a half earlier than previous school years. So during the fall, the school is going to begin around 8:30. I am there at the school at 7 a.m., 5 days a week. And previously, the past year, it was 2 days on, 1 day off, and then another 2 days with a different cohort. This has been 5 days in a row. So it's different. I'm getting used to it. But I'm also getting to that point where I'm getting myself ready for something, and then the day ends and it's like, okay. And then it's kind of like an arc, and there's nothing to do for the rest of the day. I mean, there are things to do. It's just, I still have more in me to go on these half days. So I don't know, maybe it's my point of view that needs to change, but I do feel I'm looking for something. My last little point on this slide, I wrote, this is life. And life is about changes. It's about adapting. It's about things constantly being up in the air and just changing all the time and having to adapt to that. And it can be uncomfortable. I feel the best way to do it is to keep moving. And then, of course, something can come up, but you're constantly doing stuff. You're constantly making things happen. You'll have time later, sometimes while it's happening, but most of the time later, to look back and see how you reacted to it and to see what you could have done better, or to look at what significance it might have had. And that's how things always happen. I've been so busy for most of my life that I tend to look back and go, oh wow, I didn't realize that happened, or oh, that person was trying to connect with me and I was just really, really busy and I couldn't connect with them, because it's just been business. My business is making music or teaching or something, and I get so involved in doing that I can shield out everything else, because I want to give a good performance. I want to teach well. I want all of these things to happen, and everything else is just kind of like fluff on the outside. Being introvert, I'm not really a social person. It's just one of those things that happens. But it's just interesting that occasionally you have to look back and say, I could have gone a different route, and what would have changed things? What would have changed? And I'm always, doing that. And sometimes, that takes place in a dream, and I wake up, I go, oh, I remember that. Wow. Where did that come from? Something trying to tell me something. So I'm always learning. Everyone's learning. I'm keep moving forward, and I'll get there. But guess what? There's no real destination. It's just constantly a change, and that is life. So today's main subject is hormesis, or the hormetic effect. And we're going to talk about that in a moment. First of all, I want, for those that can see the photo that I put up here, it shows weights and kettlebells and such. Yes, I believe exercise for me has been this hormetic effect. And what is a hormetic effect? I've actually put it on the screen here, and I'll read it to those that are listening. Hormesis, or the hormetic effect, is defined as a dose response phenomenon characterized by low dose stimulation and high dose inhibition. It's been recognized as representing an overcompensation from mild environmental stress. That's what I want you to really focus on. Beneficial effects of mild stress on aging and longevity have been studied for many years. Now, I found this, I did a little search, and I was like, oh, okay, wait a minute, this is great. I've been reading this in a few books, and they talked about hormesis. It's basically like having a stress in your life, a low dose stress, not something grave or something life, threatening, but just something small, daily, on and off, that keeps your body in check and keeps you adapting, if that's an easy way to think about it. And I wrote on this slide in the beginning, pain is your crucible. And I mentioned a crucible in shows, many shows ago, about a process, a stressor that you have to go through. And pain is sort of this crucible. You have to keep going through these things, because you can define pain as a stressor of some sort. Man, it's a pain to have to do my taxes. It's a pain to have to get out of a soft bed and go and exercise. It's a pain to have to make food, prep all this food, and take hours to do this and make sure everything's perfect. It's a pain to leave the house and have to go shopping for something and maybe be upset. Yes, crucibles, things that you have to do that are necessary and yet painful or stressful of some sort. So I'm using pain probably as stress. I mean, in this way, pleasure is a break from that stress. Now, we're going to get into talking about pleasure a little bit here, and I might make sort of a suggestion that those that are seeking pleasure all the time, which seems to me to be a majority of people, and honestly, it's kind of in everyone's nature to be looking for this, but those that are constantly seeking it, that lifestyle is not something that is conducive to longevity. It's also not good for you to constantly be looking for pleasure. And I want to give you some examples of this, of a person that would be constantly pleasure seeking, almost like addicted to pleasure. And then, on an extreme level, and then on a very simple level, so that we can make, an example of that. So I mentioned weights here, and I want to start with there. Lifting weights for me is sort of been my crucible that I go through almost every morning. It's usually painful. A lot of the things I don't really enjoy. And I try to make, once I start enjoying it, I try to make it a little bit harder so I don't really enjoy it. It's this thing I have to kind of push myself through. And on the other side, I'm recovering. So recovery is sort of like a pleasure, but it's also my body going through recovering from the stress. And that recovery really is what is going to keep you going. Recovery is something you're going to be looking for. And I want to give this big example. A friend of mine gave many years ago. Now, he was into some other different things, and I don't want to bring him up on this show whatsoever, but he made a line. And on one side, one extreme, he called it, he wrote the word pleasure. On the other side, he wrote the word pain. In the middle, he put a line denoting it's the middle, and he wrote the word neutral. Now, he said, you're normally in a neutral position. You're not in pain, you're not in pleasure. And neutral could just be, how you normally are. You're not hungry, maybe you're not tired. It could be, maybe this is a few hours during the day that you actually can feel this way, because maybe you're constantly going back between pain and pleasure. And it's kind of rough. I mean, this is how a lot of us live anyways. But he's just saying, normally you're not really experiencing what you would consider pleasure. You're in a neutral position. So he says ice cream or some sort of treat, cold treat that is refreshing. He says ice cream is delicious. So you're neutral and you have some ice cream and it brings you to pleasure. Now he says, if the day is incredibly hot out and like hot enough so that it hurts, you're in pain. Now, if you go from being neutral to pleasure, that's a little small distance. But if you go from pain to pleasure, there's a major difference that you're covering. You're covering this giant leap. And he says, ice cream tastes good, but on a hot day, it tastes better. And he used this sort of philosophy for some other things that he practiced. I don't want to get into those things right now, but if you think about it, exercise kind of puts everybody into this pain camp, extreme spectrum. And then you can get over to the pleasure spectrum by recovering, or how you recover, because recovery could be, something you eat to recover your nutrition, something you do like getting a massage, getting some sort of like active recovery that someone helps you with, anything, cold therapy, certain stretching that you can do, whatever, something else that can help you after you've used your body, so they can help your body recover so that you can go back into that, hormetic effect, basically back into this pain crucible. So I like the way that metaphor, that idea of a spectrum works. And if you want to think about it that way, pleasure is a break from pain. But then again, if you're in neutral position and you're always looking to go from that pleasure without having any pain, and you're constantly trying to get that pleasure is not going to be pleasurable. It's going to stop giving you that same effect. Now, here's a person. I'm going to make up this person as an example. Someone who wakes up whenever they want, and it doesn't follow any alarm. Nothing wakes them up. They wake up whenever they want. They don't work, or at least they don't have a job where they actually have to put in standard, I guess, hours, or there's not a lot of stress what they're doing. Maybe they can do something from home. Maybe it's something where their money is making money or something like that, something they can make their own hours and they don't have to put a lot of effort or investment into it. And maybe the person has some sort of stimulant that they like all throughout the day that makes them feel good. Some people could be alcohol, some people could be constant coffee, cigarettes, things like that, maybe sweets, something that they constantly getting pleasure from, and they have to keep feeding their body this pleasure. So they're in this, beyond neutral. They're more in this like pleasure zone. They're constantly hitting this pleasure. And it degrades them because the pleasure is not, it's not always great. I mean, it gets less great the more they do it. The drinks or the smoke or whatever they do is less enticing the more they do it. It's kind of like they become a slave to this thing. They have to do this, but they're not getting pleasure from it. So they maybe up the ante and they have to do something that's harder and something more pleasurable. And maybe they get interested in something else, and it could lead them down a horrible path. Now that's somebody maybe at the extreme end. Here's someone not at the extreme end as an example. Someone wakes up. So they wake up exactly when they can, as late as they possibly can, so they can still maintain their job, whatever they have to do for their career, their life. They eat food that tastes good. It doesn't matter if it's good for them. They want something that tastes good, so they use that. So that's pleasurable, right? They try not to do a lot of excess thinking, something that is pro-motivational and something that it would push them to another level and all of this stuff. They try not to do any of that. They just kind of want to live and react. So neutral, hitting the pleasure, not extreme, but they're still, every now and then where they can go over there, they're going to go there. And are they going to stay still, or are they going to hit pleasure? Is someone going to ask you, hey, you want to go to this restaurant tonight? Yes. Hey, do you want to go to this concert? Yes. Hey, do you want to do this? It's pleasurable. Yes. Someone who's constantly saying yes to things, but could be somebody that, somebody that is just, it leads a normal life, normal everyday life, but they're still hitting these pleasurable things. It's just not this super pleasure thing. That person is going to still have the same issue that the person doing the extreme pleasure seeking is. It's the same exact thing. So they're going to be constantly looking to find this pleasure, and it's going to get weakening. It's going to weaken them, and they're going to be less motivated to do it. And they're going to get themselves to a point where they have to make some extreme things, or something's going to crack, something's going to break somewhere. And that is one of the things that I kept thinking, for years, is that, and I think it's just maybe how I'm just programmed, but I'm always looking for that other shoe to drop. With anything good that happens, I'm looking for that. Well, it's probably got something, that's going to come along with it that's not so good. So I'm kind of adding in my own little hormetic response to everything, just so that nothing is perfectly pleasurable. It's always going to be this tiny little thing. Now, keep in mind, everybody is looking for pleasure. When you eat food, you probably should have, you should get yourself to a point where you can enjoy everything you eat, and you should be eating healthy food, but you should get to a point where you can enjoy what you're eating and be mindful of eating, right? That word mindful that you hear everywhere, being in the moment. But when you think about food, and when you think about, pleasure, probably shouldn't be in the same camp. I mean, there's certain things that you might be like, this is really pleasurable to have this little piece of cake, and it should be a, rare occurrence, right? You shouldn't be having this all the time. Think about, it's not going to taste good if you're constantly indulging in these things. I try not to do that. I have this weird thing where if I have something sweet, the next thing I have to have has to be savory. I can't have too many sweets and things. I have these weird heuristics, which is going to be another show. That was going to be this show, but I thought this would be more important since this is timely. We talked about this hormesis last week, so I thought I'd bring it up. But I have this balance that I have in my life, where I can't have too many good things happen in my life before I have to offset it for someone else's, or something bad has to be focused on, or I need to bring more attention to something. So I'm always looking for that weak link somewhere. And it's not because I'm trying to be perfect. It's because I need some sort of stressor. I need some sort of hormetic response. And it's weird. It's just the way I've been. I'm putting words to it, having learned what this word is the past year or so, why I think I do this. But it's also a good thing to think about in life, because if we're constantly getting pleasure, constantly seeking pleasure, and we all are to some degree, what is balancing that? If we're in the middle here, neutral, and there's pleasure here and there's pain here, and it's almost always going to pleasure, the scale's going to be tipped. It needs to go to pain every now and then. And the pain doesn't have to look like being seriously physically hurt. Pain can be looking at something in your life that you have to fix, that you feel there was no closure on, or something that you just feel like you regret some way. It could be that. That could actually be what I'm looking for in meaning right now. I'm looking for something, for a closure, or something I need to do. I mean, this leads people into a lot of different things, and You don't have to take my advice. Look this up yourself. Find out in your life what might be something that you might feel you need to fix, or somewhere you need to find meaning. And yeah, look for that. Look for that pain. And I'm using parentheses, finger air quotes when I say that, because it's pain doesn't have to mean physical pain. It can mean like a stress pain. Stress, something that is unnerving, something that sets you off from the kilter from being neutral. So I wanted to mention that this week. I did ask, what are you doing with your life? Something you can think about. What are you doing? Do you have some sort of crucible that you're going through, some sort of hormetic response? It should be there. It is in longevity and aging studies. It's one of those things where if your body thinks, one of the big things they're talking about all the time is fasting. If your body thinks it's fasting, it's going to do safeguards to make sure you live longer, because it's going to, get ready. Like, oh, we're not going to have food for a while. We're going to have to figure out how to make this thing work. And that's what your whole system's doing. So people have found ways now through certain medicines and stuff, or just through lifestyle, to get themselves into a fasting state. And wow, they found like, wow, I feel this, that, all these things are changed in my life. Yeah. Exercise on a regular basis for 21 to 28 days to form a habit. That's going to put you into a different mindset as well. You're going to get a habit going, and that's a little bit of pain that you have every single day. So maybe at the beginning of the day, you have a little bit of pain, stress, and then you recover the rest of the day and you feel better about yourself because you've recovered. It's a pleasure that you've earned. And that's another way to look at this. Have you earned it? Everyone says, I need to earn my breakfast in the morning. I need to earn my supper. I need to earn my this, earn my that. You can think about it that way. I need to earn the trust of my students. Teachers can look at this so many different ways as well. So I'm looking at my life, what I can change, what I need to change, but I'm also looking at it on this sort of spectrum all of the time. Do I want to constantly be in front of a camera and try to have technological issues going on all the time? No. But there is this benefit of doing that. And if it's benefiting somebody else, it's worth it. The pain is worth it. So try it out. Think about it. Hormesis, hormetic effect. And you can definitely see this in a lot of longevity aging studies. And yeah, it might be called different things to different people, but this is sort of the scientific way to think about it. So the part of the show where we have a 60-second rant. I think I'm just going to do a quick little rant today called Summer is Gone. So summer is not gone yet, but it seems to be gone for me. I have one more week of summer school. I'm going to enjoy this week. I'm starting to really enjoy the students. We've had some issues, but I would rather have a diverse class with jarring personalities than to have everybody say yes and no at the same time. And I need that diversity, and it's the best way we can work. It helps me become a better person. But summer is flying by, and even though I have certain things coming up I can look forward to, or at least in my calendar, I still feel like the fall is around the corner, my favorite time of year, and I should be prepared for fall teaching and for getting my room in order. And so summer really wasn't here for me. Still feel like I'm in school, I technically am, and whatever. Great summer, right? Not a big deal, though. I'm not really a summer person. I find a lot of the things a lot of people enjoy doing in the summer, I'm not really a fan of. It's interesting. If I owned certain things, maybe if I owned a sailboat, or something where I could do something in the summer that was some major thing, it might change a little bit, but at the same time, inside of me, somebody motivated to teach, someone motivated to perform, and I've got those things taken care of right now. not doing that is actually painful to me. And it's not a hormetic pain that I want. It spurs me to take on more things so that I build my schedule up. And that's basically what I've done. So I'm constantly doing that. Ask anybody. All right. Well, thank you for joining me on another one of these adventures, solo adventures from an educator. Show number 68. I'm so glad that I'm able to continue doing this. I'm glad I'm able to have an upgraded machine. The camera will be upgraded very soon, I think, possibly. Although this is pretty nice that this 8 to 10-year-old camera still works. Logitech, everybody. So subscribe, like if you like what I'm saying. Of course, if you listen to this, I guess you could still subscribe to this. That'd be great. I might be back next week with another person. I'd love to have guests on this show too, and that doesn't mean those in my vicinity. I would love to have guests that can come online. We can definitely Zoom. Zoom is everywhere. I'm using Zoom right now. That's how I do my share the screen thing. This could change because I can finally now use software that wasn't available to me on the other computer. So we'll see how this works. But until then, take care of yourself and look for the change.